Good afternoon. Let's begin the meeting of the Lake Mills Park Board of August 11th. Just so you know, this meeting is conducted via Zoom and in person. So I'll go through the agenda, and then if there's any updates or corrections, we'll go from there. So call to order, then we'll do a roll call. We'll have the Parks and Forestry Director's report from Eric. We'll have the Parks Board minutes. We'll have the other public comments, including emails, new business, which will be a discussion or at least an overview of the development procedures and review of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan for the city of Lake Mills. Then there'll be announcements. We'll create the next meeting agenda items, continuing to review the procedure for the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan, also known as CORP. Our next meeting will be on the 8th of September, and that will be our meeting. So, roll call. Anita, would you start, please?
Anita Martin here.
Tim Sprecher here.
Mary Schmager here.
Jacob Slobby here.
And Mike is not able to be with us tonight, so. All right, so then, third item on the agenda is Parks and Forestry Director's report from Eric. And Eric, you ready to go with this?
Perfect. I'll highlight a few things, and then if there's any questions afterwards, please let me know. Currently for Milton Street, we are going under the pilot program for tree protection zones and tree protection policies on that construction project. We have had instances of root pruning and air spading or air excavating around those roots with the contracted arborist on there. So this is the first time the arborists are getting really their hands dirty within the project and actually having mitigation methods for root damage during excavation. So they've been out there, they've been a good communicator, and I know they were out there last week preparing, or at least air excavating some of the areas for electrical installations. Staff did attend the WAA Summer Conference, which is the Wisconsin Arborist Association. And then lastly, we will be finishing up our planting very soon. I'll do basically a summary of what worked and what didn't with our new attempts at some of our planting procedures, but I'd like to see kind of do a season end overview. But right now we have noticed quite a bit of substantial root growth on these trees as we pull them out of our gravel bed and nursery here, and we are doing regular watering routes with them. For parks, daily parks maintenance and upkeep is still going to remain our current priority throughout the holiday season, at least extending beyond Labor Day. That being said, I do only have 2 weeks left of summer seasonal staff help, so we're going to utilize them as much as possible before they do end up going to school. So it doesn't necessarily become a to-do list, it's a what can we realistically complete list prior to the holiday and we lose our summer staff. So using them as much as possible. Car count study is still underway for City Council for some of the data for park visitation at Sandy Beach. We'll be doing a season end overview of those results as well. For beach closures, last week on Friday 8th, I did receive updated test results. So anytime we do have a closure with our updated policy, I think from 2023, if we have a closure, we do complete daily retestings until we receive a clear test result and a safe test result. That being said, the sections that we have here, Sandy Beach West is not closed. On the 8th, it was updated for advisory. Bartles Beach is open and Tyrannina Park are open.
Eric, just a quick question.
Yep.
They were closed for contamination, closed for E. coli.
E. coli. So positive E. coli test results. If anybody has further clarification that they want regarding those test results, they are, or not test results, but the testing procedures and parameters for it, they're available on our website too. It's a state required or state mandated testing procedures. So once you reach a certain threshold, it either clears the beach for no advisory, an advisory, or a closure if you surpass that threshold of E. coli results.
Thank you.
On that subject, I did notice that there are, or had been, several other beaches around the state that actually had closures for E. coli also posted on the, it was like,
Yep.
I don't know, was it the NR website or somewhere I was looking. So it's interesting. We're not alone. And is there an opportunity? I know that the Joint Rock Lake Committee is looking at trying to dig deeper on what forms possibly of contamination, if you will, that's driving ours. But that might be interesting to try to learn from others too.
I looked too, and from what I found on the state's website, there's basically a map listing what beaches and their corresponding results are. I think that's something that I will most likely have on the Rock Lake page of our website just for reference as well. But based on our acreage, from what I found in south central and southeast Wisconsin, based on our acreage, we have the most testing locations on the lake, as well as the higher frequency of testing results too, at least what I found. Next is, we will be having the Bartles Beach Playground surfacing repaired very soon, ideally next week. It is depending on contractor availability, but their goal, the playground contractor, is to complete any municipal jobs or any school jobs, I will say, prior to the start of school season. Now that we're getting closer to the start of school season, they'll be able to repair the Bartles Beach surfacing. What they do is they cut out a section of that rubber and repatch it in with new surfacing.
What was the damage?
There's a section of the rubber that was peeled up. It almost looked like someone was kind of playing with it that exasperated it a bit, but we're aware of it and doing what we can to have it fixed as soon as possible. We have had more vandalism in the parks, so I do ask that everybody stay vigilant as much as possible. If you do see something, please notify us. This is a second circumstance of vandalism within the parks. No property damage, but your general tagging, spray painting, et cetera. But I want to keep that out of the parks as much as possible.
I believe at the public comment meeting that someone made a request that we put some signage down there that if you see text X amount of, X, I wonder if that would be something we could consider to have for vigilance, be vigilant, and then if you do, then text such.
I think one of the, I do agree with you. I think one of the things too is once our cameras are installed down there, we will have notifications saying you are under surveillance, or at least informing people that you are under surveillance. Normally when those signs are up, that helps with some of that attitude. If people know they are being filmed, they're less likely to do that. But perhaps a connection to a non-emergency line though too, or contact
Just
information.
something, if they see, because again, we're all in this together, so.
Lastly, we did have an updated Bartles Beach seawall meeting today. Expected to have 90% drawings expected by August 22nd for that project. This does include ideally the bridge renovations as well of the existing bridge, repainting, redecking, et cetera, repair of the failing portions of that concrete section, updated fencing if funds allow for updated fencing, and sand retention, I suppose would probably be the way to do it. They're still looking to see what is the most effective as far as that actual place, but I would expect to have more information after August 22nd. But it was just stated to be a priority for sand retention, stop that mitigating into the channel.
Thank you.
Other than that, any questions? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Mary.
Okay, I have two. First of all, on Milton Street, when I took a walk down, I noticed the interior fences and posts are all like crashed and damaged, and so I don't know why. I guess I didn't know what I was expecting with that pilot, but is that of concern to?
So those are
Trees.
deferred to tree health management, the contract arborist. They have been in direct contact with the contractor. So if there is a period where the fence comes down, I would assume that they've communicated with the contractors. As city staff, we're having pretty minimal oversight onto it.
Okay.
But I mean, in speaking with Brianna, if there was an issue with tree health management, if there was an issue, she would notify me of it.
And then what is the status of the tree assessment at Sandy Beach?
Expected to be complete. We'll have results for September 2nd for the city council meeting.
Oh, interesting. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And Eric, for clever, who is Brianna?
She is a contract arborist with a company called Tree Health Management. She is the one who's contracted, or at least that company is the one who's contracted for arborist oversight and involvement on Milton Street project.
Okay, all right, thank you. If no other questions or comments, we will thank Eric for the report and move to the Parks Board minutes, review and approval of the June 23rd, 2025 minutes. Any comments, corrections, updates to the minutes? If,
Short and sweet.
yes, so if we could get a motion to accept the minutes.
I move to accept the Parks Board minutes of June 23rd, 2025.
All right, do we have a second?
I second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Approved, so thank you very much, and thank you, Michael. Let's move to the number 5, which is the other public comments, including emails. And I can start with one in that it was forwarded to me from a citizen that was commenting about the parking at Sandy Beach. And I think his things were legitimate. The lake has been used and such. But I believe that the amount of parking is dictated or recommended by the Department of Natural Resources, not the city.
Boat trailer parking, yes.
And that includes the county park and our park.
Yep, so it's total water body,
Yeah.
navigable water body acreage.
Yeah.
And that is calculated by the state as far as what is allowed or permitted when the boat launch was constructed.
Right,
So that's why we only have 16 slip spots.
right.
Because the 80, balance of 80 or whatever it is.
Yep.
Or whatever are in the town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we want to include that person's comments into our record or, some of the things he said, but basically, I don't want to dismiss it, but basically, we don't have, as a Parks Board and/or as a city council, I don't think we have much to say about the amount of parking.
If it was received via email, I would be fine if you forwarded it to me as well, and I can respond basically, stating what was decided and how it's decided. I would be
Thank
fine doing that.
The city council will be discussing parking. We have it on the agenda coming up. We had a proposal to, I think, just to be more clear on the current no parking documentation, I guess, because as an example, it will say from the restaurant, from the grist to X, it's no parking. Well,
Yes.
rather than the grist, they're changing it to the actual address. I mean, it's just, it's
Yes,
freshening it.
that's
So we
smart,
have this
yes.
on the agenda. And so there is a portion of Sandy Beach where there's currently no parking, so this could be a point of conversation, actually.
Good.
And I'm guessing, I'm speculating that when we talk about Sandy Beach on a whole and talk about parking and the parking lot and whether we monetize and some of those topics, this will also come up as a part of that. So I think this is going to land on city council's
Good.
agenda at some point in time.
I
Yeah.
want to make sure if someone takes the time to make a
Yeah.
comment or send a comment, that we address it so they know they were heard. So thank you for that, Mary. Thank you for the update. Thank you for the update, Eric. So any other public comments or emails?
I got, sorry.
But we'll go with Anita, then we'll go down the way.
I was just going to say that I received that same email forwarded and appreciate the resident feedback.
Okay, thank you. Jacob?
I received questioning about the beach closures. Basically, the question was, if the beaches are closed, does that mean the lake is unsafe? Is there a certain distance from the beach you can swim at to avoid the E. coli? I understand that we're just testing the beaches, but is the middle of the lake okay? And I don't know the answer to that.
I had similar questions where we are required to test, and where we test is from the point of entry at the water. So that's assuming all the beach goers are going to access the water within the designated swim areas. So we only tested designated swim areas, that being the areas that are delineated with rope. I can't speak because we don't have test results in the further water, but that's specifically what we do test, is the designated swim areas.
Is that something that we could ask Patricia Cicero or someone from the,
Sure. I suppose I didn't think about that. That would be an option. I know it would be uncommon to test non-shoreline areas, but that could be something. Perhaps the county would be the appropriate one, I think.
or just to go to the question that Jacob brings, is E. coli there? Because how far does it migrate?
Well, to
And-
give you a bit of information too, Sandy Beach, we have two beaches at Sandy Beach, the east and the west. We do have drastically different test results depending on those two areas on the beach. For example, when Sandy Beach West was closed, Sandy Beach East was open or under advisory, so we do have changing.
Yeah.
For example, too, when Sandy Beach West was closed, Bartles was open for the extended period of time too,
Yeah.
so.
I
It can
just
fluctuate.
want to make sure we let the people know that, and if we don't know, be cautious, be aware, wait till it's tested safe or something like that. Anita?
I neglected to mention, I think it's swim at your own risk, but I did receive a comment from someone that said it was clearly posted that the beach was closed and there were people in there and that there's clear signage in English and Spanish. So then, what happens if people are still swimming in there?
We do not enforce it. It would be swim at your own risk. I had the same public comment from a couple different people. They did include Jefferson County Health Department into those emails as well. The response is the same. We will do what we can to provide as adequate and as clear signage and notification as possible. If people still choose to disregard that without any reasonable doubt that this beach is closed, if they still choose to swim, it would be at their own discretion. We are not going to enforce and remove people from the water, but we will do what we can to make sure it's as clear as possible that it's closed.
Okay, thank you. I wonder if we, if we ought to look at some way to do a little more education. I mean, it's pretty clear, but I don't know if that's part of our role as a Parks Board.
Well, I was looking at, because I noticed at Bartles, when it was closed, the sign was really clear, but not as clear if you came from like this other angle, because you would have hit the side of the sign, the way it was turned.
We
and so-
do, I did notice that, and I had someone reach out too. Someone did move our sign. When we do post, I always require that we have it at beach entry and at water's edge. So when it's at the water's edge, there's
That's
no
a good
reason
spot.
people would not see
See
it.
it.
So we do always post at the entry to the water.
So that's good to note, because I would have pulled over and moved it back. I saw it and I'm like, oh, and there were people in the water, so.
I just wonder if that's something for public awareness that we could ask to be included in the, whatever it's called now, Lake Mills Independent or something like that. It's
But
the risk reward, the swim at your own risk, but say, here's what you're risking by swimming in this water.
What I would say is perhaps a request to Joint Rock Lake Committee. Their monthly meetings, they normally try to have seasonal publications, and their focus is education. I think it would be appropriate to ask Joint Rock Lake to include that, because that's what they're already working on. They try to have, 4 articles per year, and it's season dependent. So during summer, it could be swimmer safety. During winter, they normally do an ice fishing safety one.
Yeah,
So
that'd be good.
I
Thanks
think
for
that would
bringing
be
up.
more in their wheelhouse to address.
Thank you. Any other comments from our citizens? All right, if not, let's move on to new business. So develop procedures and review of the comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. Eric, could you take the lead
Sure.
on that, please?
So comprehensive outdoor rec plan, we'll refer to it as CORP as we move forward. These are drafted in relation to the comprehensive plan for the city in general, but these are done on a 5-year basis or 5-year time span. If you notice, the existing CORP is from 2020 to 2025. That being said, it should be a goal of the Parks Board to have requested updates they would like to see for the 2025 to 2030 comprehensive outdoor rec plan. The goal here is to see, does the existing CORP match what our defining characteristics and priorities are as a community and as a Parks Board or Parks Department? Reviewing what has been completed since the drafting of this, what has not been completed. It is a very extensive document, as you know. So ideally, what we do this evening is set up kind of a plan of attack or areas of priority to look at as we move forward to aim for a December deadline or goal deadline at the end of the year.
So Eric, with that, and I think citizens should be aware, this is on the city website.
Yes, this is on the city website.
And to be aware that I believe it's 104 pages, and I don't know if that includes the appendix or not. So why don't we go through some of the chapters that are in the document, and then we'll talk about what we want to,
Yep.
have focused on or potentially want to prioritize.
So my recommendation would be to look at chapter 6 and 7. The reason that I say 6 and 7 is a lot of the other ones are more background information. What are our parks? What is our community? 6 and 7 is more of the goals and objectives and plans. And then 7 would be kind of our quantitative results. What currently exists in our parks and what does our, community really need? What is our community demographics? So with 6 being the goals, I think that would be the highest priority to focus on, to review. That's not to say that these weren't good goals during the last 5-year period, but are they still consistent goals is what your guys are really looking at. Does what was written need to be updated or changed to meet the goals of the community? So I would say 6 and 7 would be kind of your areas of highlight.
And with that, with land acquisition, I don't think that's Parks Board stuff. But I do think as far as the park facilities and park development, things like that would be something that we can focus on as part of our priority.
Yep, absolutely. So for instance, when we look at on page 66, preservation, you can still look at that as a general large goal that the Parks Board has. Do you want to preserve existing lands? And if you read the language there, it is still somewhat vague and generalized, but consider permanent protection, prioritize elements when reviewing development projects. You can say that the implementation of this would be when you were looking at Sandy Beach specifically, tree preservation and natural preservation of the landscape was one of your priorities. So that's kind of how I would interpret that.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I have a question.
Mary?
I like how you're thinking we start with goals and think about what the big picture elements are that we are all, as a Parks Board, trying to achieve and where our line of sight is. But I think it would be important then to go, and I said do a field trip to each park, and I don't know if we need to do a field trip to each park, but there is something that I feel like taking then each park and asking ourselves, how does it fit against these, and then what are we missing? And I think as I'm thinking even about Sandy Beach, and we had talked about ice skating, and we talked about ice skating on the Mill Pond, we talked about ice skating down Sandy Beach, we talked about ice skating in Commons Park, and there's pros, cons around all of those. And so I don't, if there's a strategy here that is related to winter time, exercise and creative, ice skating is one thing, but is there something else we're missing? And so and where would you put it? And then we have planned neighborhoods in the plan that would eventually over time, maybe a new park would be developed at some point in time. But focusing on the ones that we have today, like the Brookstone, still, I believe you had shared at one point in time, has the plumbing for a splash pad. Is that right? Or it has like some infrastructure?
I'd have to look at, I believe it was
Not
Wallace.
Brookstone, Wallace Park.
Yeah, I
Wallace
thought it was
Park.
Wallace. I'd have to look closer into it.
But overlay the parks, I think, onto the strategy. It would be getting, I think would be a really good exercise for us to then say, does it align?
Yeah.
You know?
If I could say, so the main 2 overarching goals that were listed here when this was developed are provide all residents and visitors, regardless of age or ability, with a range of recreational opportunities through the provision of sufficient parks, recreational facilities, and other publicly accessible open space areas. Next being, preserve the city's natural resources and amenities for the benefit of current and future residents. I think that is a good goal, but there are also things that you would need to prioritize per park and location. If you generally have a priority of preservation, you have to look at each individual park. What level of priority does preservation of that area take within this park? So you can look at Rotary Park as an athletic complex. Is natural preservation going to take precedence over athletic facilities? That's kind of up for you to decide, but you do have to look at each park's intended user base and balance that as much as possible across basically the whole park system. So you have your athletic complexes, we have our naturalist parks like Tyranina. So I suppose encompassing it within those goals is kind of what you guys would have to balance.
And I think we had tried to address that with the unique park being Sandy Beach. The way we talked about the quiet area, the mixed-use area, and then the activity area. And so I think if we did exactly that with individual parks, to say, this is, the Rotary Park is not designed to be pristine, natural grass. It's here to be played on. Yet, as you said, Tyranina Park, very much a natural, as much as we can, make it a natural area. And I think we want to preserve that and have that as a priority. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
The other thing too is, I know I previously mentioned it, some of the stuff in this CORP may have been a fantastic idea at the time. That's not to say that it still exists as a great idea. So if there are things that the Parks Board generally does not like that's concepted for some parks or was determined to be a priority, this would be your time to focus those in a little bit, or perhaps the user base has changed. We look at recreation trends. When this was written in 2020, was pickleball as large as it is now? Probably not. So it's a growing recreation trend. We see other ones too. Non-motorized and kayak access continues to increase in popularity. Non-motorized or alternative transportation sources. Biking is an exceptionally popular thing that you can promote within the parks via bike routes, bike parking, bike racks. So you can promote alternative sources of transportation. So those would be kind of things that I would look at. Does what was proposed then meet the needs now for the community? And do we have new priorities that haven't been discussed, that weren't discussed in this current CORP?
I have a question kind of moving forward with these goals. There are two, like, in my mind, there are two basic parcels of land that I don't really know the plan of. I think one is about 12 acres on Owen Street, the city owns, and one is, I believe it's 33 acres across the street of Wallace Park. Like, do we have access to those to potentially do
Across the
something,
street,
or-
this is where you would almost have to look at the comprehensive plan in total, like the general city comprehensive plan. The city may own that property, but it might be planned and platted for industrial or residential development, so it may not necessarily be parks lands. You could include, within these priorities, use existing city-owned properties and favor park development rather than residential or industrial, but there may be conflicting priorities within our comprehensive plan for the city in total versus the recreation plan, which is just a subset of that. One of the things that does come to mind that will be out, or that is outlaid in this CORP, is Wetland Park. Wetland Park is a delineated park specifically used for wetlands, recreation activity, and then stormwater management. That is off of Tyranina Park Road, not really publicly accessible, undeveloped, and it's mostly stormwater infrastructure. Not a lot of people know about it. Perhaps that's something that we look at as far as potential development, or is it one of those circumstances too where you want to leave it uninterrupted or undisturbed?
Now,
So that would be an example of city-owned property that's non-developed.
And for people that are new to the city or such, that's one that's between like Ace Hardware Development area and the clinic, the medical clinic, right?
Yeah, so it would be off of Cherokee Path, which is off of Tyranina Park Road, or County Road V is what it's also
Yeah,
called as
yeah,
well.
okay.
Like I said, its primary use is for stormwater management and mitigation, but it could have, or is planned to have, alternative uses for recreation. Or the mill pond, we talked a lot about the mill pond. Granted, you could update the CORP to reflect kind of the reasonings or the justifications and the end and conclusion to reflect your recommendations to city council as you did at the Parks Board. This is what you reviewed, this is what you looked at, this was determined to be a priority. Maybe a boardwalk that you guys discussed wasn't a current priority right now, but it goes back and to reflect some of the Parks Board discussions over the last 5 years. Have those priorities morphed, developed, and changed since this was last written?
So going to actionable items from now going to September 22nd, are we looking to analyze some of the concepts that they have in here? I know that, and let's see about priorities changing over the last years and that, reading through some of the documents that said the city of Lake Mills citizens preferred to have mini parks, or, what was the word? But they residential parks rather than mini parks. And I'm just wondering if that has changed. Would the desire be for us to have maybe fewer parks, but with more amenities? I don't know. But people that have children or people that might have a different perspective than they did 6 years ago.
So what I think would happen is we do have Meet and Hunt as a resource too. I think you first start with reviewing and critiquing the goals and objectives sections. If you came prepared with that, I think there are questions that need to be answered by Meet and Hunt that are qualitrics or quantitative results. So like I said, does your demographic currently match what you want for your user base within the parks? And that data, if we look at, page 70, chapter 7, they could provide an update on a chapter 7 based on your priorities and goals and strategies that you want to review. I do think if we set it out, we will arrive to the point where you will review on a park by park basis. As we move further into chapter 6, you will get there inevitably, but I do agree with Mary. Critique as much as possible the current goals and objectives of this CORP and see if it even lines up with the current objectives of the Parks Board.
I'm just going to jump to page 49 and just specifically on the community parks, 1 Wallace, 1 Sandy Beach Park. And they're talking about the middle paragraph. The feasibility study completed to determine the future and current restaurant at Sandy Beach. The study took into account situational assessment, the market demand, XXX. Are we looking at Mead and Hunt to do, are they going to be presenting to us with kind of current plans? Are we going to come up with it first and then talk to Mead and Hunt?
So what we can do is, the goals will be up for you guys to determine. Now, updating this to reflect our current, basically our current, what we have within our park system. So this is outdated. The restaurant is not going to be an option. This can say to reflect, city council is under review, Parks Board recommended in 2025 to pursue concession shelter type vending. Things like that will be updated by Mead and Hunt. This is their document to change and tailor. The stuff that Mead and Hunt can't decide to do is, like I said, the goal setting and the priority setting.
yeah.
But the quantitative things or the updating of things would be their responsibility. So you don't have to go back through and say, in 2025, we had an updated concept made of Sandy Beach. You don't need to
Okay.
worry about focusing on that. It's not we don't have to get into wordsmithing of the 104-page document. That's their job. Keep you guys on the goal setting, I suppose.
Well, I was wondering what the expectations are requiring the need to have 104 pages.
It's a very valid point.
When I was reviewing this, I felt that it was a lot of information that didn't necessarily drive the goals, objectives, and what I would say would be the decisions around what actions were kind of in perspective to be done at each park. And so is there a way that we could, I like starting with the goals and objectives, but I don't, and I appreciate, we have Meet and Hunt on the docket that they do work on our behalf, but I think there's a lot of this that I feel like is not as important to, it's good to know, but I don't know the fact that we have the Rock River Basin covers approximately 3,777 square miles and drains in 10 counties, and I'm not sure how that is making us be an actionable parks board and having a really good plan to kind of say, here's what we're going to be expecting to happen to our parks over the next 5 years. Because I think sometimes more is not better.
I think,
And this is, it takes a long time to get to the point where it talks about something that's really meaningful in this document. So can we refresh it, or is there a requirement we have to have all of this in the?
I don't know the answer to that question if we're required to check some boxes, but I agree with you. I want this document to be consumable for people. I want people to have input on it and actually view it. Hopefully that kind of makes sense.
Can we make it so that the normal human being can print it out
Yeah, I think,
to going to college to read this?
I think,
I agree with Mary entirely.
I do too. I want it to be consumable and easy for people to actually read. The next thing is I think layout is important. I think layout wise, you should almost start with what are your goals instead of chapter 7. That should be chapter 1. Chapter 2 being what do you currently have? So basically a park inventory. And then chapter 3 being what would you like to see? I see as being a reasonable way to lay it out.
Yeah, so with that, Eric, could you repeat that so we can get that out? So for next time, let's make sure we prioritize the goals.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Goals and objectives,
Goals and objectives. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Jake. And then what's the second one you had?
what we have today.
We don't necessarily, well, you could update what we currently have today. I would say review what we currently have, be familiar with what we currently have in our park systems, see what was not completed, and if basically critique the existing priorities.
So then look at current amenities and where they are given new standards for access,
Yep.
preservation, and things like that. So that'd be another actionable item. Then I could go back to Mary's comment. Maybe we do a field trip and we go to these parks and then one or two of them just do an assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, when this is reviewed again for the 2030 to 2035 section, maybe 10% of what you wanted to see is completed. But it's up to you guys to balance those priorities. You know, like I said, is this still reasonably a priority? I don't see pickleball going anywhere, but maybe pickleball is a dying fad and it's not really a priority anymore for the next 10-year cycle. That's kind of what we're
Yeah,
looking
so
at.
we can explore that because whatever years ago, skateboards were part of the discussion and skateboard parks, and now I haven't heard anybody skateboarding in a park for a while, but I don't go that way either, so.
Yeah.
But I don't want to eliminate things if they're still used, just because I don't know they're being used,
Yeah.
doesn't mean they shouldn't be valuable. I do think that we should go to what both Mary and Jacob's comment is that I don't think anything that hasn't changed, you know, the watershed hasn't changed much. And some of these, the growth projections haven't changed much. So I don't think we need to even have that in a report. Because that documentation, they can say, look at the last report.
There were some things that I thought might be better off reserved for the general comprehensive plan for the city rather than put in the CORP.
Here.
Yes.
Some of the background information, quantitative data is best reserved for the comprehensive plan, the hundreds of pages document, and I would like to keep the CORP consumable as kind of what I would like to see.
I think that would be I think that's a good goal. I think it goes to Mary's comment, actionable, to Jacob's comment, readable, and make sure that people know what we're being asked or what we're tasked with as far as the goals and objectives.
Your goals should be clearly defined, and then the way that I see it too is your goals are setting the path for this. What you list as far as examples of that in each park and how they meet those goals is basically your proof, your example. This is how we ideally would like to implement these goals into our existing parks.
Thank you. So anything else as far as data going forward? If we are projecting to 2030 and the growth south part of town, east part of town and such, there are going to be a need for some parks there.
And that would be one of the things to bring up. Like one of your goals that you could state here is make sure that adequate park space is provided for growing resident base or growing resident base area. I don't know how you would phrase that off the top of my head, but making sure that you have delineated park areas for developing neighborhoods or something.
It is actually one of the policies in the comprehensive plan. Maybe we can
Yep.
lift that language because I like the idea of pointing to the comprehensive plan for the documentation of our growth and all of that.
Yes.
And then there is I think it's a policy or an objective. It's one of the levels of I guess, guidance and decision-making in the comprehensive plan that specifically says something in a development is are going to have parks. I'll take it to go find that, and then I'll send it to you, Eric, and you can distribute it to the reference to parks as a part of the comp plan. So if we can point to that to say, from the comp plan, this is setting the high-level stage, I think that would be a nice lead, and then to say, well, then these are our goals and objectives, and here's our benchmark of what we have today, and then here's what we would like to see over the course of the next 5 years.
Because
I like
I
that.
think
So I'll take that to do.
and that's great, Mary, because I think if I recall it, and I think we want to make sure that there might be a minimum as far as amenities or space or something like that, well, I think we ought to also consider what would be appropriate for the citizenship. So, we don't need to have a lot, but we don't have to have the minimums either. So someplace where we get the Goldilocks.
You know, it's one of the things too, when it comes down to park design. Do you have a modestly sized park provide as many recreational features as possible? Or do you have a specific user-based park designed?
Yeah.
You know, it kind of comes down to, Rotary versus, you know, Sandy, or Rotary versus, Brookstone Park. There are different user bases for them and they serve different purposes. But it's up to you to set the priority. Like I was saying, do you want to have Swiss Army knife of parks with medium amenities for everybody as much as possible for recreation opportunities, or do you want to focus in on certain recreation opportunities at each different park? I don't know, I suppose it kind of comes down to master park planning, I guess.
Mary, you had a comment? I mean, Anita, you had a comment?
Well, I did have a question, and I can't remember where exactly it was, but they were referring to ETZ, the extraterritorial zoning, I believe is what it refers to. Is that still pertinent? I thought there were some changes with ETZ zoning, or maybe I'm wrong.
I might defer that question to Mary if she can assist a bit.
I guess I have to find it.
Extraterritorial
is-
zoning requirements would kind of be beyond my
Yeah. it
my
was-
understanding that I would need for the CORP.
I can't remember where it is. I'm going to have to find it here. I think it was referring to like asked land and stuff. Let me see here. Oh, ETJ, no. It was referring to, where is it? Where is it? Astland State Park. I don't know where it is.
So
It's
basically,
been earlier, like near the 20, in the 20 page.
so
20 something.
things that are not within city limits, but still recreation opportunities in the general area. Is that kind of what you're referring to? Because that would encompass Korth Park, Rock Lake County Park, Glacial Drumlin Trail, Astalon, stuff like that.
Now, let me see if I can find it.
I mean, I think it'd be interesting to know what is available within a modest bike or drive, or, well, walk would be in the city, but I think that would be interesting to note, because I think one of the questions is, what do we have and what do we not have? So what our citizens want, and maybe we need to, somewhere along the path, ask, and, or invite, when we're talking about this as a part of building the plan, to invite public comment, to say, what are we missing that we want more of, or want that we don't, because we don't have it? Or if we have it, you can get to it, but you have to drive 20 minutes instead of just 5 minutes. And so I think that would be interesting to use as part of maybe what you have today is what we have in Lake Mills, but what do we have that's within a modest biker drive?
Well, even the
Different
conservation areas that are around here, that's, a lot of people don't even realize, but there's all sorts of places that have maybe not designated trails, but they're very walkable, and this, I don't know who, the DNR maintains them, but they have them on the north side of town, south side of town.
Lake Mills Wildlife Area plus satellite state properties for habitat management and
Yep,
conservation.
yep. So I think that's
We do have a lot of, hundreds of acres in basically the Lake Mills vicinity that's managed wildlife habitat.
And I think,
It's up north.
yeah, I think to Anita's point, though, I think those should be called out.
Yeah.
So that when people are looking for something, we can say, we do have this. It's just that, it's not a city thing, but it's certainly used and can be used by city citizens and visitors. So just to be respectful of time, and again, I think we have lots of ideas on here, but for the next meeting, are we looking at, we're gonna look at the goals, and we'll look at current state, and then we'll start working on what sort of our priorities are. But at this point, I think it's almost too much for us to absorb right now. Anybody watching, they can't see this, so they don't even know what we're really, talking about.
What I would say then is, so you don't have to read a whole 104 pages, would it be reasonable to expect to read chapter 6? Would be a reasonable homework
Start with
assignment to
chapter
kind of
6.
go
Yes.
through and critique chapter 6?
Yes. And come to the next meeting with, read and a report and your perspectives of it. And then I think for the next one, we'll start trying to come up with a plan for prioritizing and action them and coming up with ideas as far as money, monetizing them. But I think all those things that would be a good task. And 16 is what, about 10 pages, if I remember right?
Chapter 6, yeah, it's 64, I think it's even less than that. I think it's 64 through 69.
Yeah.
So reasonable amount. If you're feeling ambitious, maybe go to chapter 7, which would be the next thing, but I think it would be very reasonable to overview and critique chapter 6 as much as possible. I think that will be your master template and frame for this document being your goals and objectives.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Anita?
One quick question. Maybe I missed it, but was there anything in here at all about dog park?
Yes, there was. There was some mentions of dog parks in here.
Do you know what section it was? or-
I don't recall off the top of my head. I know dog park is listed within here as far as recommendations on,
I missed it.
recommendations on future parks. That would be chapter 8.
Okay, I'll have to reread. It is a lot of reading. Yeah, okay.
That
I'll
is a
reread.
gap. That is a gap, the dog park. We did
Yes,
not
it is a
have one
gap.
here in Lake Mills.
And-
That
And
would
a
be
lot
one.
of people do request it, so,
Yeah,
okay,
that
thank
is-
you.
I agree. A lot of people do request that one.
I actually had a question on Anita's comment about the dog park. I think everyone got very excited about the sign that was posted at the development of Plan B. And in my mind, a dog park would be one of the easiest things possible to build, but then I was talking to some people and they said it's surprisingly expensive. And I was wondering if you have any experience.
I
I
have
was-
some. I haven't built a dog park or anything. I've spoken with Kevin Weissman from County Parks. He's the County Parks Director. It's one of those things that if you have a management system for basically a fee in a management system or fee collection system and how it all works and proper dog licensing, like licensing is required in order for entry, you have to have a licensed dog. If you have that all in place prior to implementing a dog park, it's a little bit easier. But if you don't have those systems in place prior to implementing it, it can be difficult. We do have those requirements already, which is nice because we have city requirements for dogs to be licensed. So I think it's a little bit easier for a city municipality or a local municipality to manage rather than a county. Because if you're a county park who also has a dog park, you have different municipalities with different requirements as far as licensing requirements for dogs. I think it would be a little bit easier for the city to manage something like that with our requirements.
Did you say it was expensive? Is that what you?
I assumed it would be very fiscally responsible, but then I was told that it would be expensive, and I had.
So I just did a
think,
quick,
like,
I just did a
obviously-
quick Google search because now you piqued my interest and it said you can do a very small basic one for 10 to 20,000. The big thing is a fence. And then it says, while larger parks with high-end amenities can easily exceed 200, then of course people start putting down, well, my neighborhood did one for 750 and it was luxurious. And I bet you can create, I mean, you could put a lot of amenities for
Yeah.
the dogs, like runs and
Yes.
like play thingies. So I think it could be I think it is depending on the
Very-
fanciness of the design, like any park would
Yep,
be.
very similar to playground construction. So the contractors that we go through as far as playground construction, they all have amenities for park benches and trash cans and dog parks. They're fixtures that are installed in parks. You can buy the smallest available, easiest implementable option, or you can buy the Taj Mahal of dog parks. There's so much subjectiveness to that. As far as maintenance of a dog park, I think the long-term maintenance would be fairly low depending on what amenities you have there. If you're talking about building a picnic and a plumbed restroom shelter, that is going to be expensive. If it is a fenced-in area that has some things for a dog park, probably less expensive. But then there is also, one of the biggest issues was maintenance of dog parks, but generally, it is the user base maintains it very well from my experience. It's a luxury, or not a luxury item, but it's a privilege to be able to have your dog there, and if you pick up after your dog, that's great. If you don't pick up after your dog, I think there's a bit of community enforcement and policing between the people who are there, so it maintains itself fairly well. From my experience. that I've
Well,
seen.
and I'm was part of the development of the Jefferson Dog Park, and the design was, I thought, quite well thought out, because they have a small dog inner part.
Yep.
And the big dog outer part, so you don't have this disparity. Now, if you wanted to take your small dog out to the big dog park, but it was, I think, very well designed and it very much used. So I think that's, if you want to go look at that, it must be doing quite well because I haven't gotten any solicitations for more donations. You know, when it first started, that was a big thing. We had to get money, but
The nice thing about a dog park is this is exactly one of those examples that's not going to be groundbreaking. A dog park has been done by other people. You have templates to look at. We can see what works well and what doesn't. What I always like to see is when something similar is constructed, I can say, what did you wish you would have done that you didn't? And that normally points me in the right path on how to do it. A dog park would be a really good example from that because there are a lot of communities that have dog parks that we can balance and look at.
Yeah.
Now, generally for the CORP, the level of detail we're looking at is provide a dog park.
Yeah,
Is
okay.
kind of the level we're looking at, or prioritize a dog park,
Yeah.
not the design of a dog park,
Good
if that
to
makes sense.
thanks for that coaching. So anything else on that before we move on to the next agenda item? No? All right. So any announcements? Number 7, any announcements?
Yes. September 2nd City Council meeting, the agenda hasn't been created, but it's expected that there will be continued conversations on Sandy Beach development process. So when that agenda is developed, we'll have a little bit more direction as far as what's targeted and what's specifically being talked about. But it's expected that'll come up at September 2nd.
Okay, thank you. So number 8, creating next meeting agenda items. So one is, the A is the continued review procedure, but we're going to be more specific with that. We're going to come up with all the things that Jacob has written down. That will be our agenda items,
Yep.
right?
So I'm going to continue with this same wording for new business until we finish review of the CORP. I'm going to keep it discussion, develop procedures, or what I'm going to say is review of comprehensive outdoor recreation plan is what I'm going to say it. And underneath the subset, I will say chapter 6, goals, objectives, and strategies is kind
Create
of how I'll label
goals,
it. Yep.
prioritize goals, things like that. I think
Yep.
the more we can be specific so we can measure them, I think that serves
Yep.
us well.
So each time we do a chapter review, I'll specifically list that chapter topic for discussion in the agenda.
Good, good, good. All right, any other agenda items?
I have a question. I happen to be looking at the Joint Rock Lake Committee agenda for, I believe it's Wednesday of this week, and it did have Parks Board, I believe it said Parks Board update on Sandy Beach.
I was just going to talk with Shelley and the board and the Joint Rock Lake Board, give them an update what City Council had discussed and primarily what you guys have discussed. So just to make sure there's cross-board or cross-committee correspondence, I guess. So I was going to do kind of a abbreviated version of what you relayed to City Council last week.
Okay, thank you.
Is that something, what time is that? Is that here?
That's at 6 or 6:30. I can verify, but it'll be downstairs in the community center.
Okay.
So it'll either be 6 or 6:30. If anybody does want to attend, you can. But my expectation was I was going to share the document that Parks Board authored and just kind of generally go over it with them.
Okay, all right. Yes, Mary?
Well, Anita, that's interesting you mentioned Joint Rock Lake Committee because I think we have such complementary, conversations sometimes, and one of them being the safety we had talked about when Mike brought some of the photographs over by Bartles Beach with the issues, and then I had received a picture of a similar incident over by Sandy Beach, and so I think a future agenda might be interesting to have Joint Rock Lake Committee provide and come and join us and give an update on some of the things that they're working on, especially as it relates to then how it helps our beaches be safe, beach participants be safer and taken care of, and, in a fashion that because we share, the water kind of makes it a shared space, which is what I know they're looking at, but it really makes a difference if, I'm glad to hear they're talking about E. coli and trying to get the root of that, because if our beach is closed, then our number one beach asset in Sandy Beach and Bartles Beach is closed, then nobody can enjoy the number one thing that's unique. So I think, I don't know exactly what it looks like, but a Joint Rock Lake Committee connection of some sort, I think would
I think the
be
way
interesting.
I think the way to do that then is you could invite the chair and have them as an agenda item. And I would be curious to see how you'd word that, but you would have a topic of discussion saying, maybe you could ask the chairperson questions, JRLC chairperson questions, and just say generally what the goals are of the Parks Board. This is some things that we highlighted as far as lake safety and, public access safety, just so they're aware of it too, and they can relay it then to their boarding committee.
Because I think if we just, we're increasing the number of kayaks, so, okay, that's important. As they're thinking about, the water, managing the surface of the water, if you will, I think because it's complementary, because we're pushing out more boats and then, or, non-motorized vessels, and yet we have some safety, and I don't know, I just think, I like how you're thinking, Eric, so that would be something I would be interested in figuring out how to have that conversation, and that's one example of a topic. You might have other.
I can bring that up. So when I do speak with them on Wednesday, I could bring it up and say, hey, generally we'd like to have some cross-board and committee collaboration, and just entertain the idea, perhaps, chairperson for Joint Rock Lake, has a question and answer session with Parks Board or something like that.
Good.
I'm
Thanks. Thanks,
wondering,
Eric.
I'm wondering with that conversation on 8, right now it says create next meeting agenda items. I wonder if we should also put on here, consider future agenda items, because I don't think we're saying having this on the next agenda.
No, not necessarily, but just at some point in time, I think that would be
Right, so I just
interesting.
think maybe next time for an agenda item, we put on there potential future agenda items, so we don't lose them, put them on there, so we'll make a note of that. All right, I'm sorry.
The way that I would do that then is for the next meeting, I will include JRLC update or collaboration or something like that. So at our September meeting, that would be for October.
Yeah, that's great, yeah. Do stuff like that so we can just make sure we're, making progress and it doesn't just fall, all right? Any other ideas for next meeting? All right, if not, the next meeting is at 5:30 PM on Monday, September 8th. And given all our work, and thank you for the updates and goals, so we are adjourned at 6:27 PM.
Thank you.